Welcome back to another episode of This Week in the Shop. This is where I give you a candid view of the things that are happening at JSP. Today I've got a couple of new products that I want to show you guys that I'm working on. In case you're unfamiliar with the kind of products that we offer billet accessories for older Hondas and older Toyotas, specifically the AE86 and the Golden Era Hondas. One of our most common products is the radiator mount or radiator bracket for the EF Honda Civic. We also make one for the BA4 3rd Gen Honda Prelude. And of course, our most common application is the AE86. One hole that we have in our product line when it comes to the Golden Era Hondas is for the EG6 Honda Civic. Now, it's not because there hasn't been a demand for this product. The problem with it is that it's a very interesting shape. Most of the aftermarket products that are available for this application are just a piece of sheet metal that's bent and goes from the core support and holds the top of the radiator. One of the main reasons that I haven't made this yet is because it's much taller than all of the other options that we have. This is a factory EG6 Honda Civic radiator mount. It's a little over 2 inches tall, it's about 3 inches wide. A reason that it's difficult to make this out of billet is not necessarily because it's difficult to machine, it's difficult to be profitable with it, because this requires a very large chunk of aluminum to be whittled down to this very thin little bracket. Probably about 95% of the material just goes in the scrap bin. Here's a comparison between the EG bracket and the EF Civic bracket. The EF Civic bracket is also pretty wasteful when it comes to material. But over the last year or so, I've gotten enough demand with the EG6 bracket to finally start designing something. Luckily on the EG, there's only one of these, so that should help us keep the cost down a little bit. The first step to designing and manufacturing a product like this is simply taking the measurements of the original one so that we can use those measurements to create our new product. I start by taking just a couple of simple measurements, and then I go into CAD and I draw something very simple that I can 3D print and just verify that those measurements that I took were correct, and then I can go in and design something that can lead us towards a final design. Here's where I'm at with the first design, just taking some measurements from this piece and duplicating it into CAD. After we have a basic design done, then the part is 3D printed. And I'm actually going to send this off to a friend of mine, and he's going to do some fitment checks on his EG6 Civic. So I'm going to get this shipped off, and I should have some results on the fitment within the next week or so. Then I can finalize the design, and we can get into production on the EG6 JSP radiator bracket. Now, the next thing that I'm working on is something that I've actually had a lot of requests for in the past, but I never really had the ability to do the R&D on it because I didn't have a B-Series VTEC engine here in the shop for me to do the R&D on. Now, of course, as you guys saw in the last video, I have a Honda CRX with a B16A engine now, so I have a B16A engine that I can start developing more B-Series parts for. This next product is not something that's reinventing the wheel. There's already other companies that make this, but there's a catch. A common upgrade on the B-Series VTEC engine is to convert from having a distributor with spark plug wires to having a coil-on plug setup. That's where you have an individual coil for every cylinder. There's a couple of different options for coils that you can use, but probably the most common option is the K-Series Honda coils. Mounting the coils to the engine is pretty simple. There's just an adapter plate that bolts onto the valve cover, and then the coils bolt to that adapter plate. But the thing that's been missing in the market is a way to cover those coils after they're installed. So what I'm working on is not only an adapter plate to put the K-Series coils onto the engine, but also a cover that's incorporated so that you can either run the adapter plate with the coils, leave the coils exposed, or you can put our cover on top so that the coils are completely covered. I'm still very rough in the design of this, but let me show you guys where I am at. Most of you are probably already very familiar with this, but this is a B16A engine. The B16A engine comes with a distributor and spark plug wires that go to each cylinder. Those spark plug wires are normally covered with a center plate on the valve cover, and this sort of tidies up everything on the top of the engine, giving it that very common, very popular B-Series look. Underneath the spark plug cover is spark plug wires. I know you're shocked. Now this is a Honda K-Series coil, very similar and often interchanged with the Honda S2000 coil as well, but this is what we're working with. This is off of a K20 engine. So in order to get a Honda K-Series coil engine to fit in your B-Series engine, you need to have a way to mount this hole fixed onto the valve cover. Here is half of a coil adapter plate, and this is again just a prototype. Mounts onto the original studs and has 2 locations for the coils to mount onto. So the coils would just go in, you'd put a screw on there, coil would be fixed into place by this coil plate. And that's where most of the kits sort of finish. The coils just sit on top of the coil plate and they're exposed on the top of the valve cover. But many people have requested for a way to cover the coils and give the B-Series engine its original smooth, sleek look on top again. Now here's the rough idea of a coil adapter plate. Nothing fancy, just a flat plate, bolts to the valve cover, coils bolt to it. Here's what it looks like with the coils mounted. Small cutaways here for the wiring harness to be routed under the coil adapter if you want. Now let's see what it looks like if you try to put a regular spark plug cover over the top of this. Here's the problem that we're dealing with. The ignition coils probably stick out the top of this about 3/8 of an inch, so there's no way to just shove a regular coil cover back over the top of these. Now, here's where I kind of want a little bit of feedback from you guys. So the first design of the cover for these coils that I came up with sort of mimics just the regular coil cover, but then this is just raised up higher and covers them. While that's an option, the one thing that I started thinking about was hood clearance, because I do know that on some B-Series swaps, the valve cover is kind of close to the hood. And if we just had this thing sticking out flat all the way to here and then down straight, this corner might be really close to the hood on some cars. So then I started coming up with an idea of making a coil cover that sort of fits the shape of the coils and allows me to have a little bit more clearance on the front side. Here's what that looks like. Now this is a very rough shape, and I'm gonna have to 3D print one to really sort of see what it looks like on the valve cover itself, because since it is an unconventional shape, it might look real out of place. What I did with this one is I just took the profile shape of the coils and I offset that about 3/16 of an inch, and then just duplicated that pattern for all 4 coils and laid it on top of a flat plate. I threw some fillets in there just to get an idea of what it would look like. But this is, again, just a very rough idea of what a coil cover could look like on a coil on plug setup for a B-Series engine. And the last thing I want to show you before I go is another EF Civic project. This is a prototype for a Civic EF overflow bottle. This would be designed to mount in the factory location with this sort of keyed thing on the back that slips in right in front of the driver's side engine mount. It would give you a sight glass so you could see how full it is. And overall, I think this would sort of increase the look of an engine bay on an EF Civic chassis for somebody that has already upgraded everything else. So if you already have your billet engine mounts and painted valve cover and other billet accessories, and then you still have a plastic overflow bottle, this is gonna fix that problem for you. But anyway, I've got a lot of other good videos lined up for you guys in the next coming weeks. More progress on the CRX project, more A86 content, and of course, more work on our BA4 Prelude as well. So I'll see you guys next time.